The content of this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be legal or therapeutic advice. Parents, we are going to review today different ways that mental health issues come up during a divorce, and then what a court might do to address the issues. This is just touching on the surface of each of these issues. It may require in-depth discussions with a therapist, family law attorney, and or a divorce coach. The first one would be a parent weaponizing a mental health diagnosis of the child and using that to gain an upper hand in how they're going to address it in their parenting, or using the former spouse's mental health diagnosis to get an upper hand in the custody. Sometimes a parent will undermine the professional opinions of the professionals that are treating the family. And this might look like them denying the opinion of a therapist or psychiatrist, maybe even one that diagnosed them with some mental disorders that needed to be addressed because it doesn't align with their agenda. And this can also happen where they're projecting things onto the children, and maybe the therapist did or did not make a diagnosis, but the parent is going to contradict what the professional is saying because it doesn't align with their agenda. Sometimes a parent uses therapy as a surveillance. They might force a child into therapy, not for the purpose of healing the pains or the traumas of the divorce or some other issue that the child is dealing with, but is a matter to get a report back or to provide leverage in a conflict. Sometimes parents actually diagnose the other parent not in correlation with what a professional is doing, but they make their own diagnosis. For instance, a parent might say, oh, the other parent is a narcissist, or the other parent is borderline personality disorder. The other parent has bipolar disorder. The other parent is schizophrenic. The other parent has a substance abuse issue. They make all these claims and then they assert that the other parent is unfit. And it's important, yes, you do need to raise issues that are relevant and true, but they need to be evaluated and supported with examples and real facts in order to have an impact on the parenting. So this is an area that really requires thorough examination by therapists, attorneys, and a proper diagnosis should be made. A parent should not be diagnosing the other parent. That's a job for the professionals. Sometimes a parent has a mental health issue and they hide it, or they refuse to get support or help because they don't want the stigma. Maybe they're in a position where they would lose their job if they sought mental health services, such as a pilot or a police officer or something like that. So it's really important that if a parent is avoiding therapy or medication because of cultural stigma or profession, they're teaching the child to do the same, but they're also putting the child at risk because of they're undiagnosed and untreated. Here's one that comes up frequently that Dr. Becky brings up, and that's a lack of emotional regulation. People tend to parent the same way they were parented. So if their parents didn't show them how to regulate their emotions, they're not likely to do the same. They may not be exhibiting healthy ways of coping with their children. And this can be something as simple as taking a deep breath, walking away and coming back to tense situation in a little bit. These are examples that Dr. Becky gives lots of great ideas on. Another is when children are becoming a caretaker of their parent. Sometimes this is in a parental alienation situation where the child knows that the parent will be displeased if they love the other parent, and so they reject one parent to gain the love of the other parent. And this is basically like caregiving the other parent's emotional well-being. And this also applies to things like a parent having an alcohol or substance abuse issue. Kids take on the burden of managing that parent's issues. This is called parentification, and it is often unseen, and people don't even know it's happening. A lot of times kids don't realize it happens until they're in their adulthood. So it's very damaging. Another area might be where a parent is misusing a mental health label and using it as an identity for their child. Oh, well, Billy has ADHD and that's why he behaves this way. And the parent goes around telling everybody, making excuses. And maybe it's a legitimate diagnosis, but is this really something that has to be shared in that manner? And it becomes an identifying characteristic for the child, and it is very limiting. And so is that a healthy environment? And what is the other parent saying or doing to address the issue? Another one that's a very deep and complicated issue is a parent failing to provide a safe emotional environment. They don't give the kids the ability to express their emotions or to feel heard. And this can happen frequently during a divorce. Maybe the parent doesn't provide a safe emotional vessel for the child, or there's been some abuse, neglect, or maltreatment. Maybe they're putting the child down. Maybe the parent is not affectionate with the child and doesn't provide support or address their emotional distress when things come up. So this would be an inconsistent emotional response on the part of the parent. And emotionally dysregulated parents often respond unpredictably, and sometimes it's just overwhelming for the children, and sometimes the parent is just overreacting. And this confuses the child about emotional boundaries, and they're basically feeling like they're walking around on eggshells all the time. And this frequently occurs when a person has been a victim of domestic violence, narcissistic abuse, or emotional abuse. Another thing that parents can do is emotional invalidation. And an example of this might be parents that are just too overwhelmed, and they'll say to the child, "You're too sensitive," or "Stop crying, it's no big deal," or "Just be quiet, I can't handle it right now." And this leads the child to believe that their emotions are unsafe or bad, and that they need to suppress their emotions. They're not teaching the child emotional validation. I love some of Dr. Becky's podcasts where she teaches children how to manage their feelings and identify their feelings. Take a look at that. Look around for other experts that resonate with you and see what you can do in this area. When a parent is living in a chronic stress environment, the child is living in it too, because the parent frequently loses control and can't create an environment that's free of tension. And this puts everybody on a state of heightened alert. and it impacts their brain development and emotional regulation, and it could lead to mental health issues later. And unfortunately, this chronic stress environment is frequently caused by the divorce or the economic conditions that a family is dealing with. So if they didn't have some of the economic stresses and they were going through a divorce, it may lead to a better mental outcome for the family. Conflicts and issues where a parent is hiding or denying their own mental health issues. Let's say one parent is schizophrenic or bipolar and they're on medication, but they hide it from anybody and everybody, maybe even their spouse. And by not knowing, then the family members aren't taught tolerance or how to help out somebody that is dealing with a mental health issue or crisis. And this can be a real source of conflict. Another issue that frequently comes up is fictitious disorder, where a parent creates an issue for the child. And sometimes this is done to control the outcome of the custody, that they're the only parent that can help this child that has Asperger's or ADHD or diabetic, that the other parent is not competent or diligent enough to address the issues. So we all need to educate ourselves about these issues and work to eliminate stigma. So in summary, mental health issues as far as custody goes is a very complex and very important topic. Please work with professionals that know and understand the impact on the family dynamics for this. If you do have a mental health issue, be sure to address it, use the medication, and take the suggested actions by your professional. If you're on the flip side of that and you've been majorly traumatized, you're stressed, and you're not meeting the emotional needs of your children, then reach out for help. Work with nonprofits. Ask family or friends if they can help you out. Is there anything you can do, changing your lifestyle so that you work less, so that you can be available to spend time with your children, because they may be in a very needy spot while they're going through the divorce and the trauma and the transition. I wish everybody the best. I know it's a difficult time. Seek help from a qualified therapist. Talk to a divorce coach. Read books. Educate yourself in every way you can. Get help by preparing documents, gathering evidence, and completing all your paperwork. Be prepared, but also focus on healing and moving forward. Remember, all the work you need to do is done because you love your children and you want what's best for them. I wish you the best.